Yo, what is going on YouTube? It is your boy GZTV back with another video, and shout out to Chippy for recommending I've watched the original Strangers sequel series. We are going to do just that. I'm sorry if the background is a little messy. I'm kind of working on getting my room cleaned up and stuff. But yeah, man, this is the original 2008 film of The Strangers, obviously in hype up of the new trilogy remake series coming out. We had to watch the original, so that's awesome. But yeah, it's a 2008 American psychological horror film written and directed by Brian Bertino. Um, and it's based on true events, which obviously, I don't know. I'm not really a huge fan of this movie. I don't think it's like the worst movie of all time. I'm not saying this is worse than Villagers of the Damned, because that's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. But I'm not a huge fan of it, and I'm actually hoping that the sequel can do its justice, which we're going to be reviewing on Sunday. So let's get into the plot and then, what I think of the movie. So the plot follows James Hoyt and Christian McKay, who arrive at James' isolated childhood summer home after attending a wedding. So yeah, they just attended a wedding, and this again is based on real things. I think these are real character names, like real people's names. But the couple is distraught after Christian turned down James's marriage proposal. So they have kind of an awkward night, back at this house. It's really weird. There's some weird like tension there. James calls his friend Mike and asks to pick him up in the morning, which yeah, he's pretty fucking defeated as a man. Getting turned down on a proposal is is going to always evoke an emotion out of a man. Like, come on now. So the couple attempt to have sex but are interrupted by a knock at the door. Like, they attempt to kind of like reconcile and make the night a little bit better than it already than it is, but not already is. It's not a good night for them. But they hear a knock at the door. They answer to find a young woman asking if Tamara is home. At first they're like, oh, well, she just got the wrong house. Whatever. James dismisses her and builds a fire for Christian. Um, yeah, this is actually a pretty simple movie, so I don't think we're going to be talking about this that much. James goes to purchase cigarettes for Kristen because she's asking for it, and he wants to be a man, he wants to be a gentleman, he wants to be kind and have manners, and kind of lay his arm out there for her and make up for her like turning down his proposal. He wants to really prove himself because I guess like in the relationship he hasn't really redeemed himself. So the woman from earlier returns asking the same exact question. So now it's like, okay, this is getting fucking creepy. Christian dismisses her again. A masked man is seen silently watching her from inside the house. That's this scene right here, and in the actual like movie poster. So yeah, they're getting stalked now. Like once you see that, it's like okay, now there's a threat. Now there's these weird people hanging around. So Kristen notices the smoke alarm she dropped on the floor earlier is now sitting on a chair and realizes someone is in the house. Realizes there is a disturbance, and home invasion movies always provoke some sort of paranoia. And we'll talk about how this movie is kind of lackluster in its cheap thrills, but there's definitely some scary aspects to it. She finds her cell phone missing and is horrified when the front door is forced ajar. So now these people are getting fucking aggressive. The young woman, now wearing a mask, peers into the house. Kristen locks the door, retreats, tries to find a hiding spot, waiting for James to get back, which obviously like seems like forever. It's a classic horror movie, in that sense of oh, I need fucking help, and help's never gonna get here in time, I guess. So James returns finally, after what seems like an eternity, and reassures Kristen that nobody is in the house. So they start to kind of look around. They see the young masked woman, doll face, watching their house from outside, and they're like, okay, what the fuck is going on? He attempts to get his cell phone from their car, but finds it ransacked. They ran through his car, took all of his things. They're like cutting the landlines. They're going to crazy lengths to make sure that these people don't, that Kristen and, James don't communicate with the outside world, because obviously they're going to fucking murder them. Obviously something bad is going to happen. So the couple attempts to escape in the car but are abruptly stopped when the masked brunette woman rear ends them in a pickup truck, like pretty much totaling it. And like, yeah, you're not getting out. You have to pretty much hide or fight for yourself or whatever. So Mike arrives, and James accidentally shoots him dead, which is obviously one of the crazier things that they kind of interwove into the plot. It was kind of expected, though, like as he was walking into the house, you kind of knew all along what was going to happen. It's not really like it was a twist, and maybe this attests to how many horror films I've watched, but Yeah. He remembers an old radio transmitter in a barn on the property. James does. And it's like, okay, maybe we can communicate. Maybe you can go out there and communicate, or maybe I can, or something. So he leaves, and the man in the mask, which is what we're going to call the guy in the burlap, knocks him unconscious and eventually does the same to Kristen inside the house. So now they're both subdued. And the night is very, like, suspenseful, almost too much suspense, and it takes up a lot of the movie. So the couple awakens tied to chairs in the living room. Classic. Home invasion. Classic. Murder family. Kristen demands an explanation for the intruder's actions, to which Dollface replies, "Because you were home." And as much as I'm not a huge fan of the movie, I think that was one of the funnier comical lines in the movie. Like, it gave you a little bit of a laugh kind of in the moment, even if when, like, the protagonists are in despair. So the offenders unmask themselves before taking turns stabbing the couple. I mean, obviously, once you reveal your identity as a murderer, as a criminal, you have to do the deed. So, yeah, they do it. They leave and come across two young boys distributing Mormon religious tracts. You know, those little missionary boys that go around and hand out flyers and stuff, and brochures for their church. The boy gives Dollface one and the strangers drive away. And in the moment, you're kind of thinking to yourself, like, are the movie producers, are the creators of this movie, and if, did this happen in real life? Are they going to go this far? It is kind of what you're telling yourself. So the two boys come upon the house and they realize something's wrong, like there's a totaled car outside. They discover the bloodied bodies of Kristen and Mike. Kristen startles one of the boys by grabbing his hand and screaming, and eventually I guess they call the police. I guess that was like a post-credit thing. I don't really know when they did that, but yeah, it was kind of scary that Kristen did that. It was fucking creepy. It was a pretty scary way of ending the movie. I will give them credit for that. But, yeah, that's really all for the plot. This was a rather simple movie. I mean, it's very, very, like, tongue-in-cheek. But, yeah, obviously it had enough to have a remake. So, let's get into the review. So, getting into the review, yeah, this movie is pretty self-explanatory. Like, there's really not much interwoven into it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna give this an F. Like, I'm not really a big fan of this movie at all. But again, like I said before, this is not as bad as The Villagers of the Damned. I still don't think this is that good of a movie. I'm going to give the sequel a chance, and I hope it really redeems this, because I'm not a huge fan of what I watched. The Strangers has a handful of genuinely scary moments, but they're not enough to elevate the end results above standard slasher fare. I mean, they're not even, like, up to standard, really. Yeah, I'm just not a huge fan. Some people like it, some people don't. I'm probably in the don't category. So, the movie deserves more stars probably for its bottom line craft, but all the craft in the world can't redeem its story. The film was a sadistic, unmotivated home invasion flick to me. No one is getting at anything in The Strangers except the cheapest, ugliest kind of sadistic titillation. Yeah, it reminds you of some other movies, some other home invasion movies, which isn't always a bad thing, but in this case it really is, because it just defeats the purpose of a movie like this even being a thing. These comparisons don't do Strangers any favors. Yeah, I don't know. You give us a pair of heroes who fought like hell to survive, becoming closer and stronger in the effort. Bertino's undeveloped protagonists are colossally stupid and frustratingly passive. Like, you really just don't like the development of the characters. There's a lot of parts of this film that you don't like either. It's a fraud from start to finish. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm just not a huge fan. It uses cinema to ends that are objectionable and vile. It does it somewhat well in, like cinema-wise, it's not a terrible movie. Like, I don't know. Bertino has the pretensions of an artist and the indelicacy of a hack. He tries to get under our skin with a pile driver, I guess. Unfolding with an almost startling lack of self-awareness, young filmmaker Brian Bertino's debut is such a careful, straight-faced knockoff of 70s exploitation films that it plays like a parody. It does really seem like a parody sometimes, I'm not going to lie to you. The Strangers is... I don't know. I just don't have too much to say. It is what it is. I mean, not all films are going to be good. Again, I'm really hoping for the sequel to be better, but leave a like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate it, Chippy. Even if I don't like the movie you're suggesting, I really appreciate you giving me movies to watch on the channel. I need as much content as possible. As you know, the NBA season winds to a close, and we're going to be done recapping the games there. But yeah, guys, hopefully you enjoyed the review. I mean, I'd hope you enjoyed the movie. I mean, me personally, I'm not a huge fan of it. Would I revisit it? Maybe to see if I could get something on the second watch, but I don't know. See you guys on Sunday for the sequel.